I didn't want it to be something that was a burden on my family because I'm already gone a lot as it is, working and doing different things. So a lot of my training was like super late at night after the kids are in bed. And it was a lot of really cold miles in snow and when it's snowing and stuff like that.
Running 100 miles seems impossible and maybe even kind of crazy. And it is, but we believe in big crazy dreams. That's why we ran 100 miles. It was such a life-changing experience for us, we decided to devote this podcast to preparing and inspiring you to run your first ultra race.
Are you ready to feel the highest highs and the lowest lows? Are you ready to do what you once thought was impossible? Are you ready for your trail to 100? Thank you for joining us here on Trail to 100, the podcast made to help you finish your first 100-mile race. My name is Jacob Bateman, and joined along with me today, if you're joining on our YouTube video, it looks like nobody's next to me except Jesus hanging on our back wall. But my beautiful and lovely wife, Melody, is with me in the interview. She's just out making herself a frozen burrito right now, if you could hear her in the background. But as our guest today, we had Heath Forbush join us. Now, Heath is first and most importantly a father of 2 kids, married. He owns his own landscaping business, and on top of all that, he ran 100 miles. And not only did he run 100 miles, but he ran a self-supported 100 miles. So we were able to talk to Heath and figure out how he was able to accomplish that through all that responsibility, and how he was able to plan his own race and what led to him ended up having to plan his own race. He shares a lot of good tips for parents out there on how he made it work for him. He shares a lot of good tips about first time ultra mistakes that he made that he had to end up enduring through for his first couple ultras. And how he was able to endure it, and then, what he learned from them. And honestly, he just has a great story about perseverance and putting your head down and grinding. So had a great talk with Heath. We really enjoyed it. I hope you guys do as well. Remember to check out our website, trailto100.com, if you want to read more about Heath. We have a little write-up that he did posted on trailto100.com. And so let's get to it. Heath Forbush. Well, Heath, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We are so excited to chat with you and hear how you ran 100 miles.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm actually really excited. Ever since you reached out, I've been really looking forward to meeting other people here in this Utah community who are kind of in the same boat as me, just running when they can. So I've been excited to talk a little bit about what you guys have going on, share a little bit about what I've had going on. So
I'm excited that we have a local on the podcast.
Yeah, we get a lot of Midwestern people, quite a few people from back east, and so we got to get local every once in a while. So yeah, Heath. So like as you said, you about being excited to meet more runners in the area. You're relatively new to the ultra running world, correct?
Yeah. I've only been running for a couple years now. So
what got you into the sport then?
So I had my own landscaping business, and at the time, a couple years ago, I was doing 120 lawns every week, and it was just me and one helper. And so with that, I was walking a lot. So my
said
help,
like 15 to 25 miles a day or something. Is that right?
Yeah. So like my little help app on my iPhone was saying like some really long days it was closer to 25, and then some of the lighter days it's like 15. So seeing that, I thought I was in really good shape. But yeah, it also gave me a lot of time to listen to different podcasts. So I would bounce around and found different people, and came across Cam Hanes and David Goggins. And
yeah.
I was more familiar with Cam Hanes, but I think more runners know who David Goggins is than Cam Hanes. But yeah, both of them are just crazy runners who put in a lot of miles every week. So that just kind of got me interested, and it just snowballed from there.
So you listened to Cam Hanes, you listened to David Goggins' book. Did you listen to his book?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
listened to both David Goggins books, and then Cam came out with a book recently too. That was pretty good. So
Okay. Oh, go
So
ahead.
what about their books or their podcasts that as you're listening, like what about running an ultra like called to you or made you think like, because there's a lot of things that catch my interest, but then time flies by and I never end up doing. What about that was like, whoa, I want to do
Yeah,
that?
like what led to action?
yeah, just hearing David's story in his first book, Can't Hurt Me, just how he talked about everything he'd been through and just how like he needed, I don't know, something to work towards and something to just do every day and put in the work and to become mentally tough. I don't know, it just seemed like something fun to try, honestly. Sounds weird, but it also,
Makes sense to us.
I also have two kids. I have a 7-year old and an 8-year old. My 8-year old's a boy, and then the younger is a girl. And just seeing them go through certain things, they have their own challenges, like we all do, and just I wanted to do more to be an example for them, and particularly my daughter. She was born with certain physical challenges, and just seeing her overcome like doctors' expectations and struggling to do certain tasks that most of us take for granted. Just seeing her do that, I was like, what am I doing in my own life to push myself? Like I'm doing the regular stuff, like just being a dad and trying to run a business and I just wanted to show both my kids that we can do so much more than we think we're capable of.
That's awesome. That was one of my favorite things in the write up you gave us. I just feel like there's such a heavy emphasis on family and doing this for your family and doing this for your kids, and I think that's awesome. So you decided to take action, and you say that you signed up for a 50 miler on Antelope Island. Before you signed up for this race, did you do anything before that? Did you ever do any 5Ks, any marathons, or did you just go from never running to signing up for a 50-mile race?
I think maybe I did one 5K once with a couple of my buddies when I was like a lot younger. And we just showed up. We didn't sign up for the race or anything. We just hopped in with the pack and took off. But other than that, my experience for running was very minimal. So
That's awesome. Okay, and you feel like because you're doing landscaping and you're on your feet all the time, that's what gave you the confidence to sign up for a 50 without doing anything else.
yeah, and like during that time, I was listening to Goggins' book and listening to Cam Hanes and following him on Instagram.
And you're just ready
Um,
to go big or go home.
I'm just like, yeah, I can do what these guys are doing, no problem. And so the first day that I go for a run, I'm just like, I'm gonna see how far I can go. And I knew nothing about pacing, none of that. And I just took off, started running, was running like fast for me, which was like 7 to 8 minute miles,
I mean, that's
just like
pretty
Fast for me.
just
fast.
just pushing. But like by mile 7, I was like starting to really blow up, and I ended up going 15 miles. But by the end, my quads were like blown out, and the next couple weeks at work, doing the lawns and stuff, I was like limping everywhere. I was sore
I bet.
for a while.
Hey, that's
So
good training for 100. Even like that on sore leg.
that just I don't know what I was thinking. I was just like, yeah, these guys are doing it. I can do it. My legs are in
Oh yeah.
shape,
Well,
but
I
learn
feel like
fast
David
that running
Goggins.
shape and walking shape are not the same at all.
Right. Yeah, you're using different muscles. I was just gonna say, David Goggins' book makes you feel like you can do that though, because he's like,
Yeah.
I didn't train. He went and finished it, right? So,
Yeah.
Gog is like, I didn't train for my first 100 and I did it in
Yeah,
18
exactly.
hours.
right. So I'm just curious, how long did it take you to run that 15 miles? Do you remember?
I want to say like 14 hours, which is pretty slow on the course that it was at. It was on Antelope Island here in Utah, and it's fairly flat. But the first half, they're like, you're in second place. And then the second half, I like fell apart. I was having all sorts of stomach issues. Like the morning of the race, I go to Walmart to get all my supplies, things I'd never eaten before. And now I know that like the little squeeze bottles that you have in your vest and the Camelbacks, that stuff just bothers my stomach. I think the taste, it's just I
Something in the
all
plastic.
all that combined, I was having stomach issues for the whole second half of that 50
Wow.
miles. And
Oh man.
yeah, and then also somebody said that like as I was just doing a little research, somebody said baby powder was a good for lubricant. No, it was not. So I was having stomach problems, like shaving problems, like oh, it was terrible. And at my
That sounds about right for a
yeah,
first ultra.
and at mile 40, a 75-year-old man passed me on the trail. It was one of the most humbling experiences of my entire life. Just seeing him. Obviously, he's probably a lot more seasoned in the sport than me, but still, it's like
Yeah.
there's a big age gap there.
That's gonna happen on every single ultra. There's always that one old guy or that one old lady. Like, what race was it? Was it Dead Horse when you had that like Indian lady just
Oh,
like
yeah.
run past you? She wasn't even wearing
No,
shoes.
it was a dead horse. Some lady not even like wearing shoes. I was at mile 40 and I'm dying and she all of a sudden just comes. I hear her little pitter patter of feet. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a normal run. And I see she's not even wearing shoes. And she passes me up.
Like a fairy.
Yeah, almost like a ghost in the night. And I'm like, well, maybe I could try to keep up with the shoeless lady, and I ended up sticking with her for a bit. But it's funny. Your 75-year-old man experience. I was actually on a running Facebook group earlier today, and someone was asking for the top advice for their first 50 miler. And someone commented, and it was like one of the most liked comments. It said, that 70-year-old guy that you're passing at mile 5 will pass you at mile 40 and look as strong as ever when he does.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, you powered through it though. I mean, that's first 50 miles is a big deal. And
Yeah, I think the walking from the mowing is what kept me going. Like, because that whole second half, I was like averaging 15-minute miles and just walking it because my stomach was killing me. Like, I don't know. It was terrible.
But amazing when you cross the finish line, right? Like, didn't you feel so good that you're able to power through all of the hurt and
or
finish?
relief that you're done.
Yeah, I mean, so I use Strava, and so I also have the setting where it tells you every half mile that you've done a half mile. And so I actually in my headphones it said 50 miles, and I was still like 2 or 3 miles away from the finish line. And so it was like, oh my goodness, but it like gave me a little bit of time to compose myself before I met up with my wife at the finish line, because when it said 50 miles, like it was kind of emotional just knowing that I put in the work and did it, even though it didn't look very pretty, but
yeah,
I did it.
Doesn't ultra ever look pretty? I don't know. I don't think it's supposed to look pretty. I think that's part of
the beauty
awesomeness.
of it.
Yeah.
So after you did that 50 miler, what made you say, I think I can go for 100?
I think that the 100 was always the goal, but I'm like, I got to start somewhere. I don't really want to like start with half marathon. I think 50 miles, that's doable. And then the next step was just the 100. So.
Right. That's so funny. I feel like everyone has a different mindset. I think there's a lot of people in the world who would not be like, 50 miles sounds doable.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to like what I was seeing on that health app every day. I'm like, if I can do 25 miles walking in a day, 50 miles is, if that's all I'm doing, and I'm not like doing all the other stuff that goes along with my job, it's like, I think it's doable.
Totally. Well, and I was also going to say, most people can't just go run 15 miles without any kind of training. So being on your feet that much definitely helps, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
So I got a question, especially as a new parent, about how you did this.
Sometimes we're selfish on this podcast and we just ask questions that we want to know.
As you were training for your first 50 and even into your first 100, then as you rolled that over, did you ever think to yourself, like, this is too time consuming, or how am I going to fit this in with my training? Like, how did you deal with like the time management and getting in all your runs and your training fit into your busy schedule? Because you also run your own business too. So I can't imagine being a father of two. You got a wife, you got kids, you got a business. I know that's probably time consuming enough, let alone throwing in training for 100. How did you find time to make the training happen?
Okay. That's a good question, because I feel like on podcasts and like different influencers on social media, you hear a lot of different things, and you just got to do what works for you. I feel like some people will tell you one thing and another group will tell you another thing, and that advice cancels each other out. And so you just figure out what works for you. And for me, I didn't want it to be something that was a burden on my family, because I'm already gone a lot as it is, working and doing different things. So a lot of my training was like super late at night after the kids are in bed. And it was a lot of really cold miles in snow and when it's snowing and stuff like that. So I would do it just at night. Sometimes I was just thinking about this before the podcast. I had the thought, this treadmill right here, a couple nights, my daughter's like, I can't go to sleep. And so I just set her up like a little bed down here in our basement on the floor. And she fell asleep watching a movie while I ran on the treadmill.
That's awesome.
So yeah, you just got to do what works for you. And then on the weekends, when my training plan that I came up with when I was doing longer miles, I'd just get up early in the morning, and there would be like a couple hours, maybe an hour or two where I'm not at home when the kids are just waking up. But yeah, I tried to sleep. Definitely wasn't getting as much sleep as I probably should have.
Sleep was what was sacrificed.
Yeah. And like I said, there's people who are like, oh, you can't do that. Like, you need your sleep. And I just say, you got to do what works for you. Because there's people, like I said, Cam Hanes is a big inspiration for me. And that guy, he just recently retired, but he worked a normal job for 25 years and was getting up at 3:00 in the morning every day to run. Man. He tried to do like a marathon a day, and I know he didn't do that, but he was putting in a lot of miles. So, and so there's that end, and people think he's crazy. And then there's other people who like, you got to prioritize sleep. But I'm no expert. I just think you got to do what works for you and your family. So
totally. Yeah. I like that you run at night, because I think the story we hear most of the time is the campaign story of I get up at 3 in the morning and do my workout. And I think there's some people out there who would much rather run at night than get up at 3:00 in the morning and run. So that's an option too. You don't have to get up that early.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice though, because I mean, it makes me think, as we have a 3-month-old boy now who struggles to sleep at night, that maybe when I'm up with him, I got a treadmill right over here next to us.
That's not a bad idea.
If I'm gonna be up, why not make it effective time up, right? Rather than
if you got one of those bassinets that rocks, just set them right next to you. And
yeah.
Put in some miles.
Even if you're just walking or a speed hike or whatever on the treadmill, like just getting something in,
Or even put him in one of those like baby carriers. Like, I don't know how, like if he's strong enough, but I've definitely done a lot of hiking miles carrying kids too. So it helps in your training.
It's a weighted vest, right?
Yeah. Totally. And before we had our kid, I've always been the kind of person who's like, sleep comes first. You should never, ever, ever sacrifice sleep. Like, I just have preached that. And now I'm like, I had no idea. I'm like preaching this to people with kids, and I'm like, you know what? You're going to miss out on sleep sometimes. So
After your 50, what lessons did you take away from the 50 miler, maybe the training or the actual race itself, that you're like, now this is what I'm going to change, or this is what I'm going to keep doing in order to now run hundreds? Did you change anything up after the 50?
Not so much. I mean, the three main things I learned we kind of already hit on were like, just get a plan. Don't just go start running. Like, when I started training, I did that one run and blew up my legs. But then after that, I'm like, I got to run 10 miles a day. And so I was doing that for a while and got plantar fasciitis super bad and was dealing with that during the 50-mile race. So come up with a plan and kind of do a little research, and then figure out, like, on your longer runs, figure out what sits well in your stomach so you're not having stomach issues, which when I did my 100, I didn't run into that same problem. So that was good. And what was the last thing so those are two. Trying to think what I said. You guys have that in the notes.
Yeah, so come up with a plan when you start doing longer runs, what kind of food, and then, find good anti-chafing lubricant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did hit on that. Don't use baby powder. Or I also heard Goggins say Desitin, which you as new parents, like diaper cream.
Yeah.
Desitin is terrible too. Don't try that.
Don't. Good to know.
So find something, test it out on your runs.
Yeah.
All this is kind of like, you would think, oh yeah, that makes sense. Try it before you're going to do the race. But
so
I think
you've never done it before. It's a whole new world. There's just things you don't think about. Okay, so
those were the main. I was just gonna say those are the main, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like practical tips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as like getting something out of the training, I would do all these runs, something that I hadn't really done. So I was seeing people out running when I was doing my training, not typically at night, but sometimes on like my Saturday runs. And I just thought, you know what? I don't know how long these guys have been running. They could be on mile 1 or mile 50 for all I know. And I just took that to heart and just thought, you know what? We're all going through stuff in life in general. People could be on mile 1 and not going through anything too tough, but people could also be on mile 100, just gritting their teeth and trying to get through it. So we just should be kind to others is one thing that I learned during that training. Just not be so judgmental.
I love that. And maybe don't compare yourself to others. I just think about...
Yeah, exactly, because you don't know where people are at. You can't compare.
Yeah, I think... Well, it just made me think about times when I've been running and maybe it's been a long run and I'm like on mile 20 and then like old lady passes me and I start to feel bad, and I guess what I'm saying, or someone passes me and I'm like, well, they don't know that I'm on mile 20 and maybe they're just on mile 1,
Yeah.
Make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
So give yourself grace too. Like, yeah. I mean, we don't know where other people are at, and so you just can't compare. It doesn't do anybody any good to compare. So.
Right. Run your own race. Run your own run. I like that a lot. So, okay. So you said that you learned how to come up with some kind of plan. So what things did you learn and how did you make your plan? Like, what was kind of the basis of your 100-mile plan?
So I'd still say I'm not super good at planning, but I did find something online that it had 3 different options. It's like if you just want to finish, you do this plan. And it was a 6-month plan. If you just want to finish, you do this one. If you want to be like PR, you do this one. And if you want to like be on the podium, you do the last one. And so I just picked the one I just want to finish. And that plan wasn't running 10 miles a day. It was like, you have some long runs, you have some short runs, you have some tempo runs. And I never followed it perfectly because 6 months is a long time and you got life that comes up. But I just tried to like at least have some kind of a mix that I wasn't like running the same tempo, like pushing. Like I learned my first run, you don't want to just go all out every
Right.
run. You gotta just so I like I said, I'm no expert, but just like having a mix of like doing some more tempo runs and then just having long runs and just putting the time in on your feet. Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
what.
Okay.
I think that honestly, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And like if you're trying to make your first plan for your first 100, like that's great advice. You got to mix it up, you know. Don't do all slow runs. You got to throw in some tempo runs.
You also
know?
don't want to burn out mentally.
Yeah.
If you're just running slow every single day, that can get super
But you don't want
monotonous.
to do it fast every day. You're going to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's actually really good advice there.
Yeah.
For planning your first 100.
And we don't expect you to be an expert. This is just what did you do? People
Yeah.
just want to know how did you do it, you know?
Yeah.
How did the people's champ do it?
I don't know about that, but
Just curious. Did you ever throw in like high intensity sprinting, or was all your speed work was it all tempo stuff?
yeah, see, like not really sprints ever.
Okay. I just know if I was a listener, I would want to know that. So
Like, yeah, I don't. So some runs would be a little bit faster pace and some runs would be a slower pace. And like, so I don't even know if I'm using the terms correctly. Because sometimes I would be
That sounds
like
like a tempo
run at different
run.
paces. Yeah. Okay.
sometimes I'd be like, this may kind of be sprinting, but I didn't feel like I was going that fast. I would like pick out the telephone poles because I lived around me. There's a bunch of farms and there's telephone poles. And so I'd be like, from this telephone to that telephone pole, I'm going to go not all out sprint, but pretty quick. And then the next one, I'm going to walk and just
Okay.
kind of alternate. And it was surprising that like
Yeah.
looking at my Strava, it would still say I was like averaging the same speed, minutes per mile type thing, even though I was
Yeah.
walking some and then running some. So
Yeah. No, that's
interesting.
actually super. That is super interesting. That's how you can get speed work in without getting out of your like base zones. Anyways, I won't get super into it, but I could like dive into 80-20 running right now. But I'm like, yeah, isn't that cool? That anyways.
Well, let's get to the exciting stuff, the actual race itself. First off, the day before. Let's go day before. How are you feeling? Are you feeling prepared? You feeling confident? Or are the nerves like, holy crap, what have I signed up for?
So for the 100,
Yeah, for the 100.
so
wait,
yeah,
we need to
I
say,
actually
so
did
you-
I attempted 100 miles, same race, that Antelope Island race.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go there. Let's go there. The first
So
attempt.
so yeah, I mean I was excited. I don't think I was really nervous, but more so excited because I knew that it was gonna hurt, it was gonna be hard, and this year I wasn't having plantar fasciitis, but I was having really bad shin splints.
Oh no.
So I had KT tape prepared and like YouTubed how to tape that type of injury, and I was like, we're just gonna go for it. Like you're never gonna feel perfect, so you just gotta do it. So
I love how this is a compliment. I love how ghetto this all is. I love you're like Google a plan, YouTube how to tape my shins. I think it's awesome.
well, that's one thing. Like if you go on social media, one advice is get a coach, which there's definitely benefits to that. I never done it because I have 2 kids and we've got lots of stuff going on, and it's just not in the budget to do it. So it's like I said, everybody has to do what works for them. So
Right. 100%.
Yeah. So tell us about that first. The listeners don't know what happened on that first race. What happened on that 100-mile attempt?
yeah, it like the first, I don't know, 40 or so miles, things were going really good, but then my shin started acting up super bad. And at that point I was like, there's no way I'm going to finish this race. Like I was just like feeling kind of down. Like there's no way I'm finishing this race. But I got to the next aid station and taped up my shin, and Well, before I even got to that aid station, I came across a kid who was out on the trail, and he had like rolled both his ankles, and he was really, really struggling. And just having like 10, 15 minutes with him, just chatting, it kind of lifted both of our spirits and gave us energy to keep going. And then when I came into the next aid station, I taped up my shin, picked up a pacer, and then by mile 50, 60 in there, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to finish this race. So like it was a complete 180. There's definitely highs and lows over 100 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, there's no way I'm not finishing. But at around mile 80, the weather turned really bad. And we'd had some things blow in, and it was raining hard, but it just came in and went. But then these snow squalls blew in, and I'm out there, and there's people doing shorter distances who they're not wearing any type of, they're short shorts and tank tops. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're all turned around. They're like, do we go this way? Do we go that way? And I like have my head down like this, trying not to get peppered by all this like sleet coming down.
Oh my
And when I ran into those people, I'm like, okay, this is not smart. I feel like I could have finished. Like, there's no doubt I could have finished that race. But we were coming to a section where it was a little bit rockier. I mean, Antelope Island's fairly flat, but there is a small section where it's kind of rocky. And I'm like, I can't risk slipping and injuring myself. I've got a wife and kids who depend on me. And some people might say, oh, that's an excuse to not finish. And so, but I'm like, it's not worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So at mile, like around 85 miles, I was just like, I'm done. And
Wow.
all the aid stations had actually blown away, like the canopies and stuff. So they canceled the rest of the race.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I don't
So
even
if I
know-
was a little bit faster, I would have finished before that all blew in, but
Yeah.
it just wasn't in the cards.
Well, would they have even let you continue if you wanted to? I thought the whole race was just off at that point.
I don't know. I think it kind of depends. Like, I know there were a few people who were a little bit farther ahead of me that were kind of past that tougher spot
Mm-hmm.
that they ended up finishing. So, and then the faster group finished well before all that stuff happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there weren't going to be aid stations because there were a couple aid stations that I would have passed while I was out there
yeah.
that wouldn't have been there if I had kept going.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, which would have made it even. Aid stations at that point of the race, in my opinion, are crucial.
Oh,
Yeah.
It sounds like you made
it's
a good
just-
call.
yeah, I just always have like Goggins in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Being like,
Right.
suck it up. You gotta push through.
Yeah,
And I'm just
sometimes
like,
it can be a
okay.
little toxic.
So it's
Yeah.
funny though, because we were actually out on the island that day too.
Oh, yeah?
My father was running his first 50
And-
that day.
Yeah, we do have a couple other podcasts of people who talk about this, so I'll put those in the show notes.
Yeah, we've had a couple people. Ryan Head, also a former guest of the podcast, he was out there on the island that day too, attempting his first 100 as well.
Okay.
But he ended up dropping a little earlier due to other reasons. But anyways, yeah, it was a all-out blizzard out on that island. It was insane.
It
And
was
the wind.
nuts.
So yeah, it was, Melody's father he was out doing his 50 and he was 23 miles in when it struck.
And he got pulled. And
Yeah, and he kind of had beat himself up though, because he, like you, made the same decision. Was like, this isn't safe. I'm not prepared for this kind of
Well, it
terrain.
wasn't. Like you said, no one had the gear.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
no one
Yeah,
was
those shorter
expecting that
distance that were
storm.
doing like, I think there was even like a 30K or like a really short distance. And yeah, I was like, what are
The
you guys
25K,
doing?
Yeah.
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 yeah,
It's like,
Yeah.
this is insane.
yeah.
Oh, it was nuts.
Yeah, but anyways, so like you said though, like Goggins is always there in the back of your head. I know exactly what you're saying. Like you could have pushed. What the heck you doing?
Yeah, afterwards you're like,
you
wait,
quit.
could I
Like
have
you
done
know,
that? Yeah.
like
Well, I
oh,
almost like, because my parents were there kind of being my crew, and my wife and my kids were there that morning. And I was like, you know what? I'll just see you guys at home because I don't live too far away from where the race is. And that causeway is like 10 miles long. And I could have hit 100 miles to just get home. But they're like, no, just get in the car. I was like, but I want to do 100. Like that was the goal. And so ever since that day, I just kind of had a chip on my shoulder. I'm like, I can do 100.
Yeah.
I gotta prove it to myself that I can do it. So
when did you finally decide then, screw it, I'm not going to wait for a race next year. I just want to do it now, and I'm just going to do my own 100.
Well, yeah, I mean, time's definitely limited with like having a family and stuff. And race options, usually you have to register super early, or the dates that at the races I was looking at, they weren't good. And so I was like, you know what, for my 33rd birthday, that's what we're doing. I'm going to run 100 miles.
Yeah.
How long after the Antelope did you decide this?
I can't remember, to be honest. Like it was right after that I started looking for options of things to do. Cause I'm like, I could have done it. What was I thinking? Why didn't I just keep going? Yeah. So like before the year ends, I'm doing one. And so the search started, but it was probably maybe a couple months later that I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to plan my own.
Just going to do it. I was just going to say like when you dropped out of the race, it's like you also kind of have to be like, well, what's done is done, you know? Like you did the best you could with what was happening at the time, and who knows, maybe if you did keep going, maybe something bad would have happened, you know? Yeah. So anyways, and now you have a super cool story, so.
So how did you map the course, or what did you do? Like, what was your plan going into race day? How do you plan your own 100-mile race?
Well, for me, like the people who were going to be supporting me were my family. So I'm not going to like go somewhere super far away that makes it hard on them. So I'm like, it's got to just all be as convenient as running 100 miles can be. We've got to make it feasible for the people who are going to support me. So from training for different races, I knew how far, like from my front door to the mountain, I knew how far that was. And I'm like, okay, well, this trail to that trail is another certain amount. So over the summer in preparation, I just picked different sections to go test out and figure out exactly how far they were. It all started on my hunting app I use on X. You can like do line distance to like figure stuff out. And that's where I started. And then I would go run to make sure I was actually calculating it, correcting it, or drawing it correctly and stuff. So, but yeah, that's how it started.
So you drew this, was it going to be like a 50-mile out and back, or what was you thinking?
Yep. Yeah. I was just like, I'm going out my front door, and once I hit 50 miles, I'm turning around and going home.
Sweet.
That was it.
That's awesome.
I think maybe like a week, or I don't know when the name popped into my head, but I'm just like, I'm calling this the Front Porch 100. And that's the name I gave it. So
I love it.
I
think that is an awesome name. Can we make it a race where we all start at your house and we run 100 miles every year?
I think it would be cool to just like, if it became a thing that people just did it. They're like, I'm going to do my own Front Porch 100, and they do their own, map it out. And
maybe that's like a virtual.
Cool.
Yeah, there's your business idea. Create a virtual race for the Front Porch 100 and send out medals to the people who do it. Anyway, so from my understanding then, what you were thinking is, so you live about 10 miles from the mountains, the base of the mountains, from a trailhead, and then you would run to the mountains, and then you were going to go up the mountain and run on the top of the mountain. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. What happened during the actual race, though?
So yeah, I had originally planned it for November. My birthday's November 2nd, and that weekend, I think it was November 3rd, was a Friday. And so that's the day I had originally planned. But the route I chose, they closed the access to the canyon
Oh
on
no.
November 1st. And for somebody running it, it wasn't a big deal, but my parents needed and my wife needed to be able to access the canyon to do
Cruise.
the like the
Oh
crew
no.
stuff, right? And so I was like, I bumped it a week. I bumped it up a week, and the day before I was gonna do it, it snowed up in the
Oh
mountains,
no.
which is
You're like, are
crazy
you
because
serious?
the next couple weeks it got really hot for that time of year, and it was like great
That's
weather.
Utah for you, man.
But yeah, so it didn't. I did. We were about 30 miles in, and we were hitting that part, and it just wasn't really passable for like vehicles. Even like my dad, he has a side by side, and he was the one up there in the mountains with us, just riding around on that. And he went ahead. And he's like, "Yeah, it's really bad," and it was also really cold up there, and I had to take into account that like my parents were helping me, and I don't want them sitting out in the cold all night long. So
Right.
yeah, we
Right.
had to call an audible on like the route. So the route changed. We came back down from the tops of the mountains and then just ran on a lower trail um, at a lower elevation.
Where there wasn't snow then down
Yeah,
there. Okay.
yeah, and so
Okay.
it made it hard because I'm like these were trails I'd never even been on before. And
Yeah.
so I'm like having to
Oh.
recalculate, do math in my head, which when you haven't slept, you're like trying to figure out how far you need to go
Right.
so that when you turn around and go back, when you get back to your front door, it's 100 miles. So,
Yeah.
it,
See, this is why a self-supported 100 is harder than an actual 100 because an actual 100 you just follow flags. But
yeah,
now you have to pull out your map and do all the math and
yeah,
anyways.
but it was like, it wasn't like even when I was talking to my dad, when we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Even like he was saying, like, I want you guys still to do this. It wasn't like, let's just pull the ripcord and call it quits. It's like, let's figure out how to do it because there was no way I was looking to let what happened earlier that year happen again. We're like, we're doing this 100 miles no matter what. So
Right.
we just had to figure it out.
That's good. You
And,
had a good support system.
and yeah, I actually had a friend with me. His name's Sam, and he did like 1 20-mile run with me, and that's like pretty much all the like he did a little bit of running here and there, but like zero prep. And he actually did the first 50 miles with me.
Oh.
And then
Nice.
he's like, he wanted to do all 100, but he's like, well, let's just go as far as we can and see how far we can get. So
Oh
he's
my
a total
gosh.
beast, total beast.
Man.
That I gotta talk to this guy.
I
Like
know. I'm like, maybe we need to get him
he
on the
sounds like the new
podcast.
David Goggins. Goes on 120-mile run to train, and then he's like,
Uh,
"Yeah, I'm ready for a 50."
well,
Wow.
I don't think like his hopes were to finish 100, but he's like, at any point, if I'm just holding you back, you just
Yeah.
leave me. And I was like, no,
Oh,
man, we will go at whatever pace as long as you're like wanting to keep going. We'll stick together.
Yeah.
Like I have no time goals on this whatsoever. I just want to finish 100 miles. So we're in it together. But at mile 50, he was really slowing down and really hurting. And so he's like, yeah, just go on without me. And that night, I do a lot of runs with my dog. My dog, he's a chocolate lab named Dante,
I
and
love
he
it.
was there to pace and run with me through the night.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
He's good for about 30 miles, and then he's like, I'm done.
Okay, that's pretty
That's
good.
pretty good.
That's our dream. We want a dog that will run at least 30 miles with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are other breeds out there that I'm sure could do a lot more, but
That's
he
pretty impressive for you said a lab, right?
Yeah, he's a chocolate lab.
For a lab, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're pretty good. They're not
And
known to be the endurance dogs.
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm not fast either. Like he just sets a good pace, and I love running with him just because it's hard to find like other people who want to go out and run and like scheduling
You
stuff.
have to work with the schedules. Yeah.
Yeah, and but for him, it's like he's up for like if we're running at 2 o'clock in the morning, he's good with that, or he's just whenever he's ready to go. So there's no complaining from him.
That that is good to have a pacer like that.
It's safer too.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
good to have a running buddy.
he definitely finds all the deer that are out there, and
Oh man.
he's well, like he's not super well trained, but he'll at least listen to me and not go off and never come back when he's
Not
chasing after
disappear.
animals.
The wood.
Anyways, we could go. Well, I could go off on the dog story tangent.
We should do a podcast one day just on running with a dog.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what was it like to come into that finish line, to turn down your street that you live on and see your front porch and know that you had finally got that first 100-mile finish?
Well, so like mile 80 to 90, those were the toughest 10 miles of the whole thing. Like,
especially
I
if
was-
you're off the mountain now.
yeah, so, well, I was still, for that little section, I was still like running a trail. The last 90 to 100, that was all on road. But 80 to 90, it was like the sun just came up and I got a little bit of food, and like I'd been going for like the first 18 or the first 50 took us 18 hours. Like we were, like I said, we ran into snow. I was with a friend who didn't really run. We were just chugging along. And then the second half took about 15 hours. And so, yeah, just the timing of it. Coming into the morning, I was just beat. And at mile 90-ish is when I met up with my parents for that like last aid station. I got a little bit of caffeine, and I don't know, the last 10 miles were some of the best miles of the whole thing. Like I was doing some
Caffeine, man.
yeah, it works. Yeah, it was just crazy. Just coming down, like, because most of it was downhill. Because like I live out west where it's really flat, and then as the more east you go, you get to the mountains and it's uphill. And so that last 10 miles was downhill. I had a couple of miles where I was like around a 9-minute mile, and
Man.
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna run 2 miles, walk 1, and then it kind of just alternated like that. Maybe walk a mile, run a mile. But yeah, turning that last corner to get to my house, it was, I don't know. It was like, yeah, I did it. But at the same time, it was, yeah. I was like kind of expecting to feel a certain way. And I mean, definitely felt like, yeah, if I only did 100 miles, but I don't know. I don't know what my expectations were of how I was supposed to feel, but just seeing my parents and my wife and kids and my daughter, she came and ran in the last little bit with me. And my son had actually met up a couple miles out, and he rode his bike with me the last few miles.
That's
and yeah. And then maybe the last 50 yards or so, I held my daughter's hand, and she just skipped. She didn't want to try and run. She just was skipping along.
That's so cute.
And so it was, yeah, I mean, it was an awesome experience for sure.
I like how you say how, like, it was anticlimactic at the end. Like there wasn't any grand like epiphany that hit you or anything. I was talking with a friend today on a run this morning, and he ran his first 100 this past year, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, when I look back at my 100, I don't actually really look back at the finish. It's more like the moments that came throughout that 100-mile race slash also the training that I look back with a lot of fondness. You know, like I had these little wins happening throughout the race and throughout the training that's where, you know, the I really felt like I accomplished something or overcame something, you know. I don't know, like
sure.
what you said with you when you're 50 in your 50-mile race, when your watch dinged 50 miles, you know, you had a little moment there, felt a little emotional, like, whoa, I did it, you know. That wasn't the finish, but, you know, those little moments just come throughout.
We call it the finish line before the finish line. It's like, I feel like in every ultra, there's always a point where you know you're going to finish and you know you kind of made it, and that's kind of your spiritual
Or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And then after that, you just get it done. So I always laugh. I think the finishes of hundreds are just so funny because of how anticlimactic they are. We always talk about how it's like a few claps and like a cowbell, and then you just sit down and you're done. You know?
Yeah, it ended up taking 33 hours, which, like I said, I was doing it for my 33rd birthday, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
Heck yeah.
it was like almost on the dot, 33 hours. It was crazy, but
That is really cool. Also, this keeps coming to mind. Have you heard the country song "My Front Porch Looking In"?
yeah.
I've
That's
been
a
thinking
great
about-
song. I haven't heard it for a while, but I know what you're talking about.
It's one of the best songs in the world, I think. But I just keep thinking about this song with your Front Porch Ultra, and then I don't know. I just had to bring that up, and I feel like, and you did it for your family, you know. And it's like you saw these cool things, but the best view is your front porch looking in, right? Anyways,
Yeah, no, it's true.
That is awesome. So, Heath, throughout your kind of to sum things up as we gotta wrap all this up, as you look back on your experience of ultra running up to that 100-mile finish, like, what did you learn throughout it? Like,
what are your main takeaways?
Yeah,
from this whole experience?
Yeah, like what did you learn about yourself? Did you learn anything? What are you gonna change, or was it just like, oh, that was fun? Like, how do you feel looking back now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's so many parallels between running and just life in general. Like, there's just so much you can learn from it. I just, one thing about the longer distances is like I said, at mile 80 to 90, it was just rough. But then you hit a certain point and things change. So just like, that's the biggest takeaway for me that I find in running, is just that we all have seasons in life. Some seasons are harder than others, but if you just keep moving forward, keep putting one foot in front of the others, things typically tend to work out, and they typically tend to get better. And so that's my biggest takeaway, is just to keep moving forward. And like with ultra running, it's like, if my mentality has changed. Like when I did my 50, I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. But now the mentality is like, oh, I'm going to finish. It's just a matter of how much time is it going to take to finish is the question. Is just as long as you keep moving, you'll get there. So
I love it.
Just one step at a time.
There's seasons and times. There's valleys, you know, and mountains.
Aid stations.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think those are great takeaways. Are you going to do another one?
Yeah, I've been kind of just trying to figure out, like, right now at this season in life, doing some of these bigger ones that cost thousands of dollars isn't like, I just can't justify doing that.
Because it's not just the race entry fee, you know?
Yeah.
It's all the food.
It's all the
nutrition. Pairs
food.
of shoes.
Yeah. All the food you're going to eat during training. The travel, your crew traveling out there, their food, you know? And
so I do really I'm not going to do the Buffalo run out on Antelope Island again this year. I just got a lot going on with work, but if anybody's like looking for a first time one, I think that's great, because it's fairly affordable. It's pretty cheap, and then it's pretty flat too. So it's a good first one for people. And then the one I'm looking at maybe doing this fall is I think it's called like the Pony Express here in Utah in Tooele. It's another
Yeah.
kind of flat one, and I've heard it's kind of dusty and different things.
Very
But
dusty.
Well, we
and
will
I
be out there,
We'll
so
be
oh
there,
you
yeah.
have you guys done it?
no,
No,
but
we've had a couple. Well, we've had one client do it, and my dad is running it this year, so we'll be
yeah,
there.
we'll be
crewing.
out crewing Melody's dead
Because
father.
I think at that one it's cheaper like entry fee, but you also the last time I looked at it, I thought I saw that you have to. There aren't really aid stations. You
There's
just have
one.
to.
Basically, a self-supported
They
100.
Yeah.
got a one aid station at like mile 58, and it's like a big party that they have burgers and just growing up and things. But yeah, but basically your crew just in their vehicle just can drive up and help you wherever you are, you know?
And so I'm leaning kind of towards that one, or maybe maybe do the same route I had planned, but do it earlier in the year so we don't get snowed out. Either the Pony Express or that one, just because.
Cool.
I mean, the Pony Express, it's like you're self-supporting anyways. So,
Right.
but you also don't have to map out the course. It's all that's taken care of.
And
so,
you get a buckle, you know?
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess you could make your own buckle for your
yeah. My
Porch Ultra.
wife, we do a thing for our family. Everybody gets a new Christmas ornament for something that happened that year, and she made me a Christmas ornament with like the silhouette of me and my dog running, and she put Front Porch 100 and like put the elevation stuff in the back, and it was cool.
Gosh,
So I didn't get a belt
awesome.
buckle, but I got a cool Christmas ornament to hang on the
That's
tree.
way cooler than a belt buckle.
Sounds
That's
like a good
awesome.
wife.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like an awesome family.
So, Heath, if our listeners want to follow you or hear more about your crazy adventures, do you have any sort of social media that they can follow you on?
Yeah. So for running, I've kind of started one, Race for What You Face, and I gave it that name or came up with that name just because, like I mentioned briefly, we have a daughter with some physical challenges that she was born with, and I've struggled to figure out how to share that because I don't want to overshare with things that are personal to her. But I feel like as parents of children with that kind of stuff, there's a lot that we can lean on each other for. Like it's a community. And so I'd be happy to talk more in depth with people about what we're going through on an individual level. If anybody wanted to reach out, Race for What You Face is my running thing, and then just Heath.Forbush is my personal Instagram. So
Cool.
they can reach out
Perfect.
to either one of those.
Perfect. And we'll put those in the show notes.
Well,
Perfect.
Heath, you blow us away. Like, honestly, your story is, I think it's very, I love your humility about it, but because we ourselves have run 100 miles self-supported, and I remember being at mile 70, we had to reroute about at mile 70-ish and trying to calculate in my head, reroute and telling my crew, okay, I want you meet me here.
Because you're the race director,
and
too.
then you meet me
Yeah.
here, like this is where I'm going, and it's just so much more that you have to deal with in your head and giving direction, that I just have so much respect for anyone who does that. So congrats on running 100 miles, and we're excited to see what you do moving forward.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, we got to get out on the trails one of these days since we're both locals here to Utah.
For sure.
Northern
Let's
Utah.
hit up Antelope. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, thank you, Heath. We appreciate you coming on. So a big thank you goes out to Heath Forbush for coming on the podcast today, sharing us his self-supported 100-mile story.
Super inspirational. Heath was super humble, and he shared lots of good advice.
Oh, yeah. So, Melody, what's your main takeaway from our conversation with Heath?
Honestly, I just love how he did this for his family. He said in the write-up that we did, we asked what drives you to keep doing ultras, and he said the main thing that pushes me to keep doing ultras is my family. And he talked about how he wanted to show his kids that, you can do anything you set your mind to. And
Yeah, agreed. I think that is such a good motivation for an ultra, to find something outside of just yourself, and like to do it for your family. There's nothing better to do it for your kids, to show them that they can do big, crazy things, that they can achieve their dreams.
Just because like I get that for the first time, having a kid now, and I just feel like everything I do it for you. I just thought of that song. Anyways, everything I do it for you.
You're in the song,
and and now for Travis too, and it just makes everything that we do so much more meaningful, and it makes me want to be the best version of myself, you know.
Yeah. I really liked when he shared about how he got his training in at night, and how when his daughter was up at night, that there's
you hear that's my frozen burrito in the microwave.
Microwave was going off. Sorry, guys. But as his daughter was up at night, that he just put her in a little bed next to the treadmill, and he hit the treadmill.
Well, because that's the kind of stuff that we've had to do.
Yeah,
you know?
That's realistic, because I've been struggling with how am I gonna get my training in, because it's been crazy since having a kid. And I've gained so much more respect for parents who do it after experiencing it. And I've only been in the game for 3 months. But what Heath shared there of just, if the kid's up, then, just put him in, like Travis, I can hold him, I can put him in a little carrier, and I can go walking on the treadmill.
So if I hear the treadmill at 3 a.m, I'll know what you're doing.
You'll know exactly what I'm doing. Then I won't have to go get my run in at 6 a.m. because I got it in at 3 and then went back to sleep.
In an hour, yeah.
So there we go. But I really liked that, what he had to share there. So anyways, another thank you goes out to Heath. Make sure you go give him a follow on Instagram. Excited to see what he does out there and what his next big adventure is going to be.
For sure. If you want to read the write-up that he sent us, that is on our website. Also on our website, if you're interested in Charlotte 100 swag, or if you're interested in Charlotte 100 coaching, you can check it out there.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We really do appreciate you taking the time to support us and to support our guests here on Trail to 100. And remember, if you want to run 100 miles, make it happen.